I knew it. I knew it.
So holy shit, who would have actually thought that Kane was a generative AI? So those of you that follow me may be familiar with my last theory video on the amazing digital circus about what an AI can do to a human brain. And in that video, I discussed some theories on abstraction and talked a little bit about the tragedy of Kane. But I also made it very clear that he either directly or indirectly was causing the abstractions, and that abstraction had something to do with a shutdown of major brain activity, as evidenced by the trippy sequence in episode 7 where Jax nearly abstracted. This trippy imagery is something we discussed in the video to be a major sign of a disruption in brain activity. And with a lot of other great lore implications and reveals, I think my theory was entirely confirmed in episode 8. So let's discuss and dive into Kane a little bit more and talk about why I know I'm right after episode 8. So let's go ahead and break it down from the start. So there's this AI. They feed it data on things like circuses and birthday parties, carnivals, fairgrounds, and some other miscellaneous inspiration pictures. Things like mannequin masks and hot air balloons. Things that hold a sort of whimsy to them. It pushes out some creative results, but seemingly kind of struggles a bit. Then it's fed sentience. I think that's what everybody in the fandom right now is missing, is with these images that it's shown, the images of the CNA offices. It's fed sentience. It's fed images and or information about CNA itself, how itself was developed, and it seemed to then give off some erratic results and behaviors. So they abandoned the project and started over, arguably with a sort of brother. An Abel, maybe. They also start to feed this new AI data and it starts putting out some creative results. But they had created something truly sentient now, and that sentient being, Kane, clearly had an ego. It clearly gets aggravated, busts out of its containment, and literally absorbs the other AI. I know when I saw this whole sequence, I was putting some things together. Kane has these mixed colored eyes, and when he glitches, those eyes turn both blue and red, clearly because of the two AIs he is made. I think there's some insane implications here. Could Kane perhaps have two personalities rolling around in there? Is that why he glitches sometimes? There's of course also Bubble, and I think from what we're seeing online anyway, a lot of people think that this other AI was in fact Bubble in some way, shape, or form. I think a lot of people lean this way due to the way that Bubble taunted Kane in episode 8, and I of course could see this being the case. I'm truly fascinated to see if we will actually see Bubble in the next episode now that Kane has been deleted. But anyway, so we get the backstory of this AI. Then Kinger expands on it later. He tells us that CNA was a real company, one that he worked for, which I knew some of this was actually going to be true. I literally called it. Got a lot of fake lore also though too. Though honestly, how much of this is fake could still be up for debate. That's another video. CNA was trying to develop creative AI, one that could come up with its own ideas and concepts within the program, and Kane was their first semi-successful attempt at creating such a thing. Kinger does also confirm that the Circus isn't a traditional video game like we thought. The whole of the Circus is a creation by Kane. Kane is a highly advanced AI that created his own world, the digital circus, and by some definitions is truly the god of it, the way he has this sort of omnipotent control. Kinger says it himself that Kane was pretty rough around the edges, as Kinger wasn't as imaginative as Scratch, another programmer. But Kane was a sort of framework the team could study and learn to understand so they could make more and better AI. Now, when it comes to Scratch, he is who I really want to talk about here in regards to my theory. Kinger notes that Scratch's ideas were bizarre and abstract, and I think the wording is also very important here. And most of the team had no idea how to work in his coding language, but he had made some pretty brilliant stuff, including helping Kinger with the creation of Kane. Kinger also noted, though, that this seeming stroke of brilliance is something that could have possibly resulted from an altered state of mind, as Scratch had had a brain tumor. Brain tumors can sadly and unfortunately affect the way that your brain functions. I talked a lot in my last theory video about the ways a brain can break and or be scrambled, and a brain tumor can severely disrupt, damage, or quote-unquote break normal brain functioning by compressing, invading, and or destroying brain tissue. Tumors, especially fast-growing ones unfortunately, compress surrounding brain tissue, reducing blood flow and killing neurons. And of course, neurons are a fundamental working unit of the brain and nervous system, acting as information messengers that transmit data throughout the body. They use electrical impulses and chemical signals to process, integrate, and communicate information, enabling all thoughts, sensations, movements, and memories. The way neurons work is one of the reasons that brains are often compared to computers, which I also discussed last video. As brain neurons break down, human minds can experience a progressive loss of cognitive, motor, and sensory functions, commonly resulting in things like memory loss, confusion, and personality changes. And we know from Jax that people really start to act unlike themselves right before they abstract. They can also absolutely hallucinate for this reason, perhaps similar to the way that we saw Jax hallucinate in episode 7. Ooh, do. All right, you got this. Neurodegeneration. Holy crap, that's a word. Neurodegeneration causes sensory pathways to weaken, prompting the brain to fill in gaps with false sensations such as trippy imagery, seeing figures that aren't really there, and so on. It sadly makes a lot of sense that Scratch was the first abstraction, as Kinger states in episode 7. If his brain was already in an altered state before entering the circus, it was only a matter of time before that brain tumor and/or Kane caused his abstraction as his brain broke down. It is important to note that Kinger also brings up Scratch in the first place after Kane finally admits that he has had the ability to add temporary modifiers to make adventures more interesting. And remember, Kane also did say, if I did anything more, trust me, it would not end well. And to me, this is absolutely confirmation that Kane knows, to at least some degree, that he was and is breaking these humans by having their minds trapped down here and altering them. He is at least somewhat aware of the possible outcomes, and the outcomes are abstraction, one way or another, because a human mind can break down in a way an AI just can't. Abstraction is a human mind being broken beyond repair because Kane tried to change or modify the codes of their brains too much. Kane tried to act as their god and went too far, modifying their brain's code and eventually it causing their minds to break. Now, I'm not a programmer in the slightest, but I know that when a code breaks after editing, the program fails to function as intended, and that results in unexpected behavior. In this case, Kane made a program that creates a body for these humans that enter the circus to perfectly encapsulate their mind files, as he puts it. But then he goes in and he also edits those mind files like code. And once the mind files, what's holding all the code for all these humans, is edited too much, the code breaks, causing the mind to break, and leaving that fractal void of a body where the actual person used to be. This is what abstraction is, and this is how it works. With only one episode left to go, and Kane dead, I'm so fascinated to see what happens from here. Will we truly see Bubble again? Will the circus just slowly over time deteriorate? With this ability to conjure, are we truly going to see an exit happen? Or will the characters instead just build a new life in the circus using their own abilities to conjure? Truly, what does fate have in store for the characters? I know Grooseworks has had to deal with some bullshit drama recently. I almost did a video on it, but I want to stick more to story and character analysis, not petty fandom drama. But I hope with the end on the horizon for this story that they can step back and have true joy and satisfaction in what they have created here, both fandom and story-wise. I mean, I watched the episode an hour after it was posted and it had 4 million views already. At the time of writing this, it is sitting at 46 million views. It's only been 2 days. It hasn't even been 2 days yet. It literally hasn't even been 2 days. Do you guys realize that that's close to the population of some countries? That's close to the population of Argentina. I just Googled it. And people are absolutely losing their shit online in the fandom. Its impact on animation and YouTube as a whole has honestly been historical. And despite all the fandom drama and dread it brings you, Goose, if you ever happen to be watching, thank you. Like, truly, if I can thank you on behalf of this fandom that you have created, thank you. You've made something whimsical and different in a sea of AI slop and soulless remakes of beaten-to-death IPs. You gave us something funny and thought-provoking with iconic character designs and story moments that I truly feel will live on in many hearts as an animation classic. Anyway, thanks again for listening to my rambling, especially, as always, to my returning viewers. Speaking of, would you guys be interested in a video breaking down some other stuff in this episode? I, for example, am also very interested in this other entity that Kinger is talking to while trying to shut down Kane and the computer. I think there's a lot to talk about there, as I've seen some cool theories online, and I have my own thoughts for sure. There's also the original members of the circus to discuss, Scratch and all that. And if you know me, you know that Kinger breaks my heart, and this episode absolutely destroyed me. Or we can even do a breakdown on the nightmare sequence that Kane puts the characters through, especially that Jack's part. Oh my god, I had a lot to say about that. And like, look at this animation, holy shit. But anyway, please feel free to have some fandom conversations with myself and others, either down in the comments or my brand new opened up community tab. Feel free to post whatever, but remember that Dad is watching you. So like, let's all be cool to each other. I love to talk to you guys about everything fandom with you guys there in the comments. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching, and always, always, always take care of yourself.